We welcome you to our press conference where we shall highlight key aspects of our electoral reform agenda. However, before we get into the business of the day, a few remarks. As the NDC Alliance, we are deeply concerned at the deteriorating situation in the country as the nation is embroiled in a constitutional crisis, which is compounded by an already existing legitimacy crisis that flows from the disputed 2018 election. It is the defects in the 2018 election and the elections that have come before it that necessitate political, economic, and most importantly, electoral reforms about which we will speak today. Zimbabwe's constitutional crisis finds expression in the recent move by ZANU-PF and its proxies to tear apart the constitution that was agreed to after a nationwide referendum. This latest repressive act betrays the regime's toxic desire to usurp the will of the people, to entrench dictatorship, and to concentrate power in the hands of one individual. The bad governance, constitutional, and legitimacy crises pervading the executive have also tainted the other two arms of government, including the legislature and the judiciary. We also take issue with the escalation of authoritarianism, increasing human rights abuses, arbitrary arrests, including that most recently of our National Youth Chairperson, Obesi Tole. The weaponization of the bail application process to ensure that citizens are unjustly incarcerated, as we saw with Cecilia Chimbiri and Joanna Mambombe. And the regime's unrelenting abuse of the courts to silence dissent. The illegal recalls of people's elected representatives were designed to shore up support for ZANU-PF in its quest to amend the constitution, as it did not have the required two-thirds majority to do so alone. ZANU-PF has also established a youth militia that is designed to entrench fear and cause violence ahead of the election season. They've also illegally rolled out compulsory ZANU-PF ideological training for bureaucrats and the senior staff of local authorities. We can see that the regime is in pre-election panic mode as it seeks to introduce a patriotic bill to legislate against free speech, free conscience, and to outlaw the conduct of demanding a better society. Consistent with our Agenda 2021, we urge citizens to peacefully resist the attempt to entrench one-party rule in our country. We also note that citizens have not been spared the ill effects of the poorly managed economy. Despite the regime's propaganda and attempt to paint a false picture of economic improvement, people's livelihoods remain under constant threat, with teachers, doctors, and other civil servants earning slave wages. We see increasing food insecurity. We see triple-digit inflation, rendering basic necessities out of reach for the common person, and the informal economy is struggling following the COVID-19 lockdown that paralyzed small, medium, and big business alike. The agricultural sector has not been spared, as the good rainy season was not accompanied by any serious attempt by the regime to provide adequate inputs and mechanization for farmers. Citizens, especially the poor, are bearing the brunt of the rising cost of living and basic services. We reiterate our call for the implementation of economic policies that are pro-poor. The corruption crisis continues unabated as more cases of illicit gold smuggling, cronyism, and looting emerge with no accountability or intervention by ZAC to bring those most responsible to book. Corruption is killing us. We demand that the individuals implicated be held accountable. We reaffirm that the NDC alliance is the only viable alternative that can win Zimbabwe for change. We call upon all citizens to converge for change in line with our Zimbabwe Agenda 2021 announced by President Nelson Chamisa earlier this year. A broad alliance and a strong united opposition are the people's best foot forward in the fight against dictatorship and repression. Every Zimbabwean who is at least 18 years old must register to vote. We must all join hands in demanding urgent reform of the electoral system. And we must also join hands in defending that vote. So without further ado, I defer to our Secretary for Elections, Councillor Ian Makone, who will speak to our electoral reform agenda, then soon after take questions on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Fadzai. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. To underline what she said, it's all about convergence for change. And there are any number of areas over which Zimbabweans of similar thinking should be seriously engaged. Why now? We all know that with the COVID restrictions, it was nearly impossible to have held this occasion. But recently, ZEC has announced that normal political activity will resume, and will take them up on their word. What better way to start this process than initiating a national discourse with stakeholders? The fourth step of whom you are an important national stakeholder. And we would like us to use this as only the beginning of a discourse with yourselves and with all other stakeholders. Because when we've done that in the past, the outcome has been favorable to the country. I'll step back to 2006, 2007, and into 2008, where we said that we should all converge in our demand for a people-driven constitution. It was painful, and I can testify to that. But in 2013, we went through a national referendum, which produced a constitution that Fadzai refers to as being shredded to pieces, and that is unfortunate. I would like to suggest that on this occasion, we focus our attention to the necessary environment for free and fair elections. We don't want to go into another plebiscite, which produces the same result. So therefore, we're doing everything that is humanly possible to ensure that Zimbabweans have an opportunity to determine what it is should be changed in our current legislation and practices of ZEC as we move towards the next national elections. We have countlessly communicated with ZEC over the need for stakeholder consultation, which is the only way that will ensure that the outcome of any electoral process has credibility, principally among Zimbabweans. We are not an island. Even the international community has voiced its concerns about the credibility of the manner in which our elections have been conducted up to now. We have in the past shared with yourselves, and I'll use that as the basis for this discourse, the 20 principles that were drawn up by NDC Alliance to try and capture the key issues requiring electoral reform, both in the perspective of the national legislature and in terms of ZEC as the implementing authority, who after all should be independent. So I don't really propose to read this verbatim at all. You will be able to read it. It will be circulated. I believe that we got your contact details and you get that. You also get a copy of the 20 principles that I'm referring to, so that we engage in that debate, in that discussion, and with a view to ensuring that in as short a period as possible, humanly possible, Zimbabweans converge on what it is would be the minimum changes necessary. We don't all see things the same way. And that is why we need that discourse. The reforms that we're talking about are at two levels. There are those reforms that require changes in legislation, and in particular the alignment of the Electoral Act to our Constitution. On several occasions, we've made reference to it, and on several occasions, it was like knocking against a brick wall. I sincerely hope that this time around, with the combined voices from all the dissenting citizens, those changes will happen. We've done it before. The result is we've got a constitution adopted by Zimbabweans, which they are trying to decimate. The second level of reforms concerns activities that are within the purview by law of ZEC themselves. As early as the 9th of March, we wrote to ZEC, but this was only the last of several contacts with ZEC. We would like them to act independently of any control of anybody, which is what the law of the land says. We were gratified to learn that the national population census had been brought forward. But for one key reason, and the reason should be that the electoral boundaries drawn up for the next elections must reflect the population distribution of the country ahead of that election. Obviously, a good deal of consultation is required between stakeholders and ZEC in that regard. So far, there's no evidence to suggest to us that such consultation is going to happen. So the end result is that we require and we insist on a delineation of boundaries which are genuinely reflective of the population densities in our country. On that same note, there's issues of voter registration and there's issues of eligibility to vote. We have countlessly made the point to ZEC that it is within their purview, working in conjunction with stakeholders, to ensure that every Zimbabwean, wherever they may be, are given opportunity to participate in the elections. So voter registration, which is what Fadzai referred to, we urge citizens to register. But we equally were saying that the arrangements for voter registration are not suitable at all for the ordinary Zimbabweans, the distances to registration centers. This, for us, is an issue that we would like stakeholders to be seized with if we're all genuine about giving them a fair chance to present their preferences. So therefore, this all boils down to having that forum, a forum of stakeholders working in conjunction with ZEC, where it is not a report back from ZEC, it is a genuine conversation, a genuine discourse. It has eluded us all along. But we call once again that if this is the starting point for ensuring that we have an electoral outcome that is beyond reproach. I would like to ask on this note, Ellen, my colleague in elections, to just make brief reference to the 20 principles that we've drawn up, which underline all the important areas of our elections. Because it is important that as you interact with other stakeholders, you're very clear that the MDC Alliance, on this issue, this is our position, which is supported by a review of best practices elsewhere. So it is not just a thumbs up. This country has got enormous opportunities available to it. But the starting point is a national consensus on the key electoral environment issues, and the key electoral environment issues which ensures that no one in their right senses would question the outcome.
Thank you so much, Ian, for the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. Before I get into the discussion regarding our electoral reforms document, which we referred to as PRICE, which are principles for reliable, inclusive elections in Zimbabwe. What we did as the MDC Alliance, we said, okay, we have a problem with our electoral laws. But then we came up with benchmarks to say, what are the other countries doing? So we did a study on, for example, countries like Kenya, South Africa, Ghana. And also we took into account the fact that in 2018, with several observer missions that observed our elections, and they came up with recommendations. So we actually took on board those recommendations as well. And also we took into account the AU and the SADC protocols with regards to elections. And particularly the SADC is produced a document which they termed the SADC model law on elections. So those are the basis for our electoral reforms document. And from there on, we assessed the environment which we as Zimbabwe are currently operating in, and that's how we came up with this document. And we take note of the fact that these reforms, some of them, they require the reform of the electoral law itself, but also most of these reforms are operational. Our constitution is very clear. But in terms of operations, we realize that there is no political will, to actually implement those reforms in the constitution and align the electoral law to the constitution. So that is basically our main worry. I'll not go into the 20 principles. We'll share the document with you. And I'm sure the document is also available on our website. But I'll just give you a nutshell of the key reform areas that we are concerned with as the MDC Alliance. First and foremost, we talk of the independence of ZEC. Just like any other Chapter 12 institutions, those independent bodies, including ZEC, they are not supposed to be under the direction or control of anyone. That is very clear. And with particular reference to ZEC now, we talk of the issue of even the operations within ZEC itself. For example, no regulation, electoral regulation, can come out of ZEC without being endorsed or ratified by the Minister of Justice. And we take note of the fact that the minister is a political figure. And that affects, the aspect of objectivity there. And most importantly, ZEC should be reporting to Parliament, just like any other Chapter 12 Constitution, but that is not happening. Instead, it's the minister who does the reporting. So we have a problem there. And also, the other aspect which we are concerned about is the aspect of transparency and accountability on the part of SEC. Just basic good governance practice expects any institution or entity to report to its stakeholders. I'm sure Ian spoke strongly about the issue of engagement. We have tried to engage ZEC several times. We have written to ZEC as political parties, as MDC, being a political party in Zimbabwe, a key player in the political and electoral dynamics of the country. But we have not had positive responses. And particularly on issues relating to electoral matters, we still have outstanding issues from the 2018 elections. And up to now, we are 2 years away to the next election and nothing has come forth. For example, currently there's the aspect of delimitation, which is redrawing of of constituency and ward boundaries, which is a very, very important aspect. And clearly, even the SADC law itself speaks to the issue of a stakeholder engagement. And even our constitution as well makes reference to that aspect. But we have never had any discourse with ZEC regarding the issue, save for radio programs and where ZEC speaks to people through the radio to say, no, we are currently doing our delimitation mapping exercise there. But we, as political parties being key players, we are saying, but for starters, we do not have the roadmap. What is ZEC's plan? How do we fit in as stakeholders? Political parties, civic society organizations, business entities, how do we fit in? Because at the end of the day, we are the people that will be affected by this delimitation process. But we can't be consulted via the radio, And also, some time back, I think in April, ZEC issued a press statement to that regard. But that is one-way communication. That is not engagement. We have issues which date back from the last delimitation exercise of 2008, with issues to do with gerrymandering. And how are those issues going to be addressed? These are the issues that we want to know as political parties. And moreover, who is going to conduct this delimitation? Because delimitation, even the Constitution, it's clear that it should be a fair and transparent process. But for the aspect of fairness, we want to know who is going to conduct that process, and will that person be objective enough to do a proper job? Not only that, delimitation is a technical and highly complex exercise, which needs the technical expertise. And we know for a fact that ZEC does not have that technical expertise. So now, if ZEC is to outsource that responsibility, who is it outsourcing to? We want to know, these are the issues that you want to know with regards to delimitation. The methodology itself. Yes, we understand that the Constitution says the number of registered voters are the key determinants with regards to electoral boundaries. But how is that going to be implemented? So that's the methodology we want to. That's the kind of discourse, that we want to engage ZEC with. I know there's the COVID situation. Everyone knows that. But then there are virtual platforms. They can organize a Zoom meeting. They can organize. There are lots of things. Even basic communication, Facebook Messenger, and stuff like that. We are living in a millennium world where technology is there. But there is that gap. Section 67 of our Constitution is very clear to say every adult citizen above the age of 18 has the right to vote. That is very clear. But we see quite a huge population of our people being disfranchised. For example, we talk of the diaspora. Yes, we understand there could be legal impediments, but the Constitution is clear. If a country like Mozambique can actually come into Zimbabwe and get its people to travel all the way to Bulawayo to actually register its people there, what's stopping Zimbabwe from doing the same? I know there could be some technical complexities, but has ZEC ever attempted? Have we ever sat down and shared notes with on that regard? So these are some of the issues. We talk of, for example, on the day of voting, we have the prisoners as well. Prisoners are Zimbabweans. They are human beings. They have the right to vote. We have people that will be possibly be hospitalized on election day. What are the mechanisms that will be put in place to ensure that those people exercise their right to vote? So these are the issues that as the MDC Alliance we say, no, let's sit down and discuss and find a way forward. We had that problem even in 2018. We had problems with the uniformed forces. Quite a number of them that were deployed on the day of election, they couldn't vote because there was no proper mechanisms. I remember in Bulawayo, at the city hall, there was chaos there of soldiers and police officers that wanted to vote, but they did not get the chance. So at the end of the day, they couldn't do that. So we don't want a repeat of the same situation in 2023. So now, what are the measures and systems that will be put in place? And then we talk of the issue of media freedoms, access to media, fair and equal access. The Electoral Act, even the Electoral Act, speaks to the fact that ZEC has the responsibility of ensuring that every political player has access to free and equitable media. But that is not happening. What are the measures? Has ZEC ever attempted to engage the Media Commission to that regard? Because, for example, if you look at the aspect of the public media, as the MDC Alliance, we have constantly complained that we are not getting any coverage. The only coverage that we get is usually negative coverage. And we have complained about it throughout whatever electoral period. But those issues have not been addressed. So we want to say, what we are saying is, let there be free access to media. Let's put up measures and necessary systems to enable everyone, every political party to have access to media. And lastly, the political environment. We are saying, as the MDC, we want an enforceable code of conduct for all stakeholders that whose activities impact on electoral outcomes. For example, we talk about the role of traditional leaders in elections. We receive complaints day in, day out of their influence in the rural in rural areas. The role of the security. What are the police doing? These clandestine arrests. The military itself. What is the role of the military in elections? So these are the issues that we're talking about. To say, as the MDC, these stakeholders, they should be subjected to a code of conduct to ensure that they execute their duties in a fair and transparent manner, as expected by the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So these are the areas that we need to sit down with ZEC, not just ZEC, even any other stakeholder who has a direct impact on the operation or on electoral outcomes. So basically, these are our key issues with regards to our electoral reforms, but we have 20 principles which we'll be gladly share with the media and everyone out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our esteemed Secretary for Elections and his deputy for outlining the key aspects upon which the MDC Alliance requires reform. So I'm just going to call upon our esteemed Secretary for Elections, Mr. Councillor Ian Makone, to come back up again, and we're going to take a few questions from the press. If you may respectfully just identify your name, your media house, and then ask your question, and we'll take it. Yes, sir.
My question is, in the event, worst case scenario, if the process drags and we get into 2023 and no reform to your goal has been made, like what happened in 2018? We saw what happened there at the upstream. They tried, I think, the marches that were having. They said the people to vote. Nothing changed. And the question that was what you as a party are they will take that to reform and not your level
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, look, I thought that might come up, which is why in my opening remarks, I've said that in 2006, 2007, we said, along with stakeholders, that this country needs an early election. We had an election in 2008 instead of 2010. It just didn't come out of the benevolence of any one party or government. We then at the same time said that we will chart a process towards a people-driven constitution. And you didn't believe us, but it did happen. So what I'm saying to you is that let us not be bogged down with if they don't do this thing, I won't do that. No, I would like, in the first instance, to put forward our message to the fourth state on the need and the necessity for electoral reforms. And then I would like to urge all other stakeholders to be of the same mind. Let us not be bogged down in negativity. This country has had enough of that. Let us remain positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Maybe we'll take 2 or 3 more questions and then we'll close the session. So no questions within the... Okay, yes, ma'am?
My question to you, Councillor Makone, is have you engaged with that and what has been that response to engagement? You've come to the court of the public opinion, which is asking that you take it to the people. What is your expectation from the people of Zimbabwe in support of this, your push for electoral reform?
Yes, again, I come back to the same, more or less the same answer. That they are not impervious to common sense, finally. We have written to them. They have, on one occasion, written back to us, and we appreciate that. They've indicated that a process of consultation with stakeholders might be possible. So we are taking them up on that. And what we're saying to the fourth state and through the fourth state to all other stakeholders is that this is an issue which is as much your responsibility as it is of political parties. Let us look at it. Let us get the message across to Zimbabweans, and I'm sure ZEC will engage.
Thank you. Are there any...
Thank you very much.
If there are no questions, all that remains is for me to thank you very much all our journalist partners and partners in the media for taking time to come and cover this press conference. Let's continue to push the message of winning Zimbabwe for change. We urge all citizens to go and register to vote. We must make sure we're engaged on the delimitation and census processes and ensure that we encourage everyone around us to also defend the vote after we've voted. So thank you very much to our esteemed Secretary for Elections and his deputy for their address today. Thank you very much.
Good.